Should frustrated WWE wrestlers suddenly go to AEW? We'll tell you next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Hello and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications as we're trying to hit 5,000 YouTube subscribers before All Elite Wrestling, Double or Nothing. So Ralph, ever since the announcement of All Elite Wrestling, we get this sudden disgruntlement with WWE wrestlers where we hear the Revival have asked for their release. We've heard that Rusev wants to leave and possibly go down to NXT. It's reported that Shinsuke Nakamura has checked out. And of course, the latest with Sasha Banks, whether or not it's true or not, we're still getting developments saying that it's may not be exactly true with her frustration. And of course, every time there's something going on, there's always the social media outburst of, oh, they're going to All Elite Wrestling, or they should go to All Elite Wrestling because they'll be booked better this way. But yet, how do we really know when there hasn't even been a show yet? Yeah. So should these quote unquote frustrated WWE wrestlers go to AEW? Is that the better choice for them?
I think some of them should certainly try to make a jump to AEW or, try their luck on the independent scene altogether. You look at a guy like Neville or Pac, as he's called now, maybe considered, what would you consider him, a B player? Not that his talent dictates he's a B player. He's certainly capable of more than being just a B player.
Yeah.
But within what WWE kind of held him to, he was a B player. He was the king of the cruiserweights. That was probably his most prominent role. But he was never one of the top guys.
No, and I would never put him in the top guy level. Some people would, but, WWE is more than just being able to do flips and flops in the ring. And
to them, he was never viewed as a main eventer.
Right.
He never got the opportunity to do something like that. So for him to leave the WWE and really venture outside of that world, he's developed this. He's gone back to his character as Pac. He's well known on the independent scene. I think he's going to do a lot of great things with All Elite Wrestling. We look at his feud right now with Hangman Page. That's one of the matches that I'm looking forward to. I think they're going to have a really good match. I'm interested in it. And just being able to see the presence that Neville or Pac has been able to kind of show people, another side of himself, an edgier side of himself. He wasn't able to do stuff like that within WWE because he was very much more of like a high-flying cartoon Max Moon type character.
Yeah.
That's what he was kind of held to. Another guy, and probably the best example of anybody, is Cody Rhodes.
Right.
This is a guy that legitimately was Stardust. His career was probably dead to rights if you ask just about anybody who follows professional wrestling. Because Stardust, while it had its moments and it was a catchy gimmick,
it was a gimmick.
It was a gimmick. Like, you're not going to main event as Stardust. You're not going to win the heavyweight championship as Stardust, but he was able to go outside WWE, become the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes.
Align himself with the Bullet Club.
Yeah, and now he's essentially one of the top guys in All Elite Wrestling before they've even had any matches. Probably one of the most talked about guys outside of WWE, and he did all of that stuff on his own with the help of the Bullet Club and obviously the Elite. So yes, some of these guys should go to All Elite Wrestling or work outside of the WWE.
Yeah, you bring up a great point with Cody Rhodes, and I think I put this in the comments in one of our videos because people talk about this, or maybe it was on Twitter. I don't remember exactly where I posted this, but Cody Rhodes, to me, opened a can of worms for this whole thing because Cody Rhodes was the first to be more successful outside of WWE after leaving WWE than anybody else.
Yeah.
You look at so many guys that try to run the independent scene after WWE, and they have decent runs, but never the money, never the exposure that Cody Rhodes had. Cody Rhodes even said he made more money in the independent scene than he ever did in WWE.
Yeah.
So when you see that, and, not trying to disrespect the guy and knock on him, but he's not the greatest in-ring wrestler. He's not the greatest character or the greatest promo. He gets it. Yeah. He's just one of the, obviously being Dusty's son, he gets the wrestling business and he just used that to his advantage to showcase himself. aligning himself with the Bullet Club, where here in the States, they're the most popular faction in New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor. Aligning himself there, getting the Ring of Honor championship opportunity very quickly, winning it, and having all these different titles and, going to all different independent shows and having steel cage matches with Kurt Angle, and now people are talking about Kenny Omega and the Bucks, and all because of Cody, I think. Like, while everyone was talking about Kenny and the Bucks beforehand, a lot more people talked about them after Cody got involved.
Well, I think it's really a whole bunch of things when you look at that timeline. So I think the biggest thing that got those guys recognized was obviously the Kenny and Okada match, their first one.
Yes.
And obviously the Dave Meltzer star rating, that got out. People started watching that. They had a couple of rematches. And of course, the involvement with Chris Jericho, which I think was obviously huge. Cody Rhodes, all of that stuff combined. It was all really good timing. And not to mention the resurgence of the independent scene as a whole. Look at a guy like PCO. Did anybody expect this guy that was wrestling in the early 90s?
He was at WrestleMania 10.
Yeah, and now he's probably one of the bigger guys on the independent scene who people are talking about, and he's in Villain Enterprises and Ring of Honor, and he's given a prominent role. These are guys that are proving that you don't have to go to WWE to make it. Now, you could go to WWE and become a household name, of course. Don't get me wrong. Nobody's going to do a favor for you like WWE would in that respect, because it's mass exposure, right? But you can certainly go to All Elite Wrestling or New Japan Pro Wrestling or Ring of Honor or MLW, wherever. Right now, the independent scene is hot. So if you want to strike while the iron's hot, especially if you're one of those guys who feels like you're not getting the opportunities because WWE, we talk about this all the time. You look at their roster, it's so bloated right now. They're bringing up guys from NXT. There's only limited spots. Granted, they have all this TV time, but there's still only going to be so many spots for top guys and the WrestleMania main events and this and that. So at the end of the day, this is good. This is good because the person who doesn't necessarily feel like they're being used correctly, Ty Dillinger may be one of those guys where he can walk away from WWE and say, it was great here, but I want to give this a shot because I'll get the time. I'll be able to show the world what I'm actually made of. I think some of them should make the jump.
Now, you look at, obviously, Ty Dillinger is a great example, but you also have a guy like Dean Ambrose, for example.
Yeah.
Dean Ambrose, everyone's saying he's going to jump from WWE to AEW. I don't think that's exactly the case. I think he just is I think it's very CM Punk-like, where he's just kind of fed up with wrestling right now and just needs to take a break. I think eventually he'll come back. CM Punk, obviously, 5 years later has not, but I think it's more of a reset button for Dean Ambrose.
Yeah.
And this is a guy where he might not necessarily do great in an All Elite Wrestling or a Ring of Honor in New Japan, just because there might not be something there. Maybe I'm missing something with him when he was in WWE, but maybe he's a guy where people would expect more out of him, and he might not get it because if you let's look at All Elite Wrestling, where it seems like the main event picture is already set up. So if you put Ambrose in there, you expect him to also be in that main event picture, but given that who they already have, he might just be lost in the shuffle there too. Ring of Honor might be a better fit for him because Ring of Honor needs more guys, in my opinion, especially if Marty Scurll leaves.
Yeah.
New Japan, yes, they have foreigners that are booked strongly, but they obviously are going to book their Japanese wrestlers stronger than their foreign guys. So that could be an example of a guy that might not fare well in WWE. Sasha Banks, if she leaves WWE, or they're saying how frustrated she is, and if she wants to leave WWE, where's she going to go? The only real strong suit or strong women's division right now is Impact Wrestling, and they're not going to be able to afford Sasha Banks.
Well, they might. You never know, but it's tough because at the end of the day, for some of the thing too is Cody Rhodes also said, we're not just going to go and sign former WWE.
Exactly.
So just because you worked at WWE doesn't mean that they're going to automatically sign you to AEW.
Right.
they are very much committed to bringing up the guys from the independent scene, giving them time. Whether it's MJF or some of the younger guys who I wouldn't say they're household names, but they're probably well known within the hardcore fan base. That's what they're committed to. That's going to be their bread and butter. I think, like you said, they've got their main eventers. They're probably going to try to sign some other guys, but to go out there and get a big name guy like Dean Ambrose, like you said, that would essentially mean they're going to throw him right in the main event. I think that if he decides to leave and he called Cody or whoever and reached out to AEW and they said, "Hey, I wanna jump ship," they'd probably be happy to oblige him, but I don't think we could just say that, okay, all these other guys are just going to all of a sudden jump ship to AEW, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be limited.
I know a lot of people are comparing AEW to WCW, in almost every aspect, but this is something to consider because this is how WCW really started the Monday Night Wars, and basically they just grabbed all the different WWE guys and that wanted to jump ship. They liked their contract situation that WCW was offering. And look what happened to them. Yeah. There were guys that should have gotten the spotlight and were negatively affected because we had to make sure Hulk Hogan got his thing and make sure Kevin Nash got his thing and Scott Hall had his spot. And it got to a point where, you're throwing the Ultimate Warrior in a big spot at Halloween Havoc, and it was a total nightmare.
Absolutely.
Roddy Piper, Bret Hart were absolute failures in WCW. So because of that, you had guys like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio lost in the pile, where if you do that same aspect, you're going to have people like MJF lost in the pile. Guys like Hangman Page lost in the pile.
But, okay, now here's where this gets interesting comparing the two. You say, okay, guys like Jericho and guys like Eddie Guerrero, they were held down because the guys on top wouldn't give up their spots. Now, if you compare that to WWE and say there's a guy like, I don't know, let's just use Dean Ambrose. Let's say that he's not necessarily getting top spots because he's being held down, and that the top guys are not willing. Not that they're not willing, but they're just WWE is booking to cater to their top guys. So
right.
A guy like Dean Ambrose, because it's so bloated over here and he jumped ship to AEW, maybe he will get those opportunities. I don't know. I mean, we have to see how it shakes out. So it's interesting comparing the Monday Night Wars and what actually went on and comparing it to AEW and WWE, because I think at the very least, AEW has opened the doors to afford people opportunities, especially some of the younger guys or people who aren't being used correctly in WWE. So that should at least be encouraging to them.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, would you see Ambrose jump ship?
If he legitimately wanted to go to AEW, I think he's a big enough name where they would certainly welcome him, yes.
Ty Dillinger. We already talked about Dillinger,
I think
but
because of his relationship with Cody, probably yes.
The Revival.
Yes, but they're a good example of a team that, despite being a top team, because they were the champions, I wouldn't say they've necessarily been booked correctly.
No, I agree as well.
Yeah.
Sasha Banks.
No, I don't think so. I think that whole thing's more of a work than anything else.
Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah.
You can see him in All Elite Wrestling.
I could see him there or going back to Japan, but I don't see him sticking around once his contract's up.
All right. Let us know what you think. Should frustrated WWE guys jump ship to AEW? Let us know in the comments below. Share this video all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Subscribe and hit that bell for notifications as we're trying to hit 5,000 YouTube subscribers before All Elite Wrestling, Double or Nothing. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti, and thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.